This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
Linus Holmberg, back for McDonough. Across the line, McDonough's in alone! Score! McDonough! He actually tried to make it deke. He fumbled the puck and it went in anyway! The Lightning answer on the next shift, and they've tied the game in 4.
That might have been the biggest goal that got scored. Because we fight all the way back from down 3, and then we give it up, and now it's like, oh my God, we're going to be able to do it again. And I wasn't sure exactly what the time was, but it couldn't have been, was it less than 30 seconds after to bring us back to 4-4. So now we're not even, the pity party hasn't started yet. So he nipped that right in the bud, and then we had a chance to go out and win a game.
Was that Cooch-like or what? Come on. What was that all about? Of course, that was the question a lot of people had after the game. Ryan McDonough, with his inner Nikita Kucherov, breaking that out, as John Cooper said, maybe the biggest goal of the game. There were a lot of big moments, and it is Power Lunch on Lightning Radio. It's going to be a short week for us here on the program. Of course, Christmas approaching. Still a game tonight. Then we'll be taping tomorrow. But let me bring in the radio voice of the Lightning and my partner, Dave Mishkin. Listen, because it's so fresh, it's easy to sit there and say this was the most important win of the year. You're going to hear a lot of that. I mean, of course, tonight's game could be the most important game of the year or win. But I think all things considered, partner, when you factor in who they were playing and the lead that Carolina got out to, we just don't see Carolina on a routine basis give up a 3-goal lead, even though they've been a little leaky the last couple of games for them. That's still a really good team. I know they had some injuries, but nothing's easy for this Tampa Bay Lightning team, considering the injuries they've had too. And to come back from 3 goals down in that setting, yeah, I could at least entertain the idea that was probably the most impressive win of this season. That's not, more than halfway through. And good for the Lightning. A lot of good things that we're going to discuss for this next hour with our fans. But they had to feel pretty good about what they were able to accomplish against a really good team.
Well, I called it the biggest win of the year. I said that on the air after the game, and I wrote about it as well after the game. And I'll give you my reasons why I thought it was the biggest win of the year. The Lightning were staring at the prospect of 5 straight losses at home in regulation. And one of the problems they have had during the 4 home losses and then the first period against Carolina, as John Cooper said, like, they really have not played with the lead. He said we've been chasing games. He's right. They've either been tied or they've been trailing. And the only time they had a lead was the first period against LA. Bjorkstrand scored, about halfway through the period. They held it through the end of that period, and then, about 5 minutes into the second, the Kings tied it. And the Lightning never got the lead back. That's it. Whatever that is, 15 minutes or so. I don't have the box score in front of me, but it was less than a period that they've had a lead during the 4 straight home regulation losses, and that wears on you. We talked about it when the Lightning lost their 4 in a row in regulation, how they didn't have a lead. They kept giving up the first goal. They were chasing. It's hard to chase. It's deflating to chase game after game after game after game. And when you come out of that first period against Carolina, and you're like, not only are we chasing again, not only are we down, we're down 3 goals.
For sure.
Carolina is a cup contender. Carolina, you're right. Carolina doesn't often give up leads.
Yeah.
Certainly not 3-goal leads. And they just given up a 3-0 lead the night before. What do you think they were talking about in the locker room after the first period? Not tonight. We let it slip away last night. Not happening tonight. So to say that the odds were stacked against the Lightning, I think would be an understatement. I mean, the stats tell us, the analytics tell us, that if you are down 3 goals after 1 period, the likelihood of you winning that game in regulation is very low. And in fact, we got the info after the game. It's only happened twice before in the history of the Tampa Bay Lightning that they have surrendered 3 goals in the first period, fallen behind 3-0 after 1, and then rallied to win the game.
Sure.
Now, they've been down 3 goals at other points in games, but down 3-0 after the first. They've only won 2 times in franchise history before the other night. So, look, had they won 7 in a row and then they fell behind 3-0 to Carolina in the first period and rallied to win, I would not say that this was the biggest win of the year. But based on where they were as a team, and I think I'll use this word, fragile. Fragile.
Sure. Yeah, it's
been a tough month. They've played well. They've not gotten rewarded. They've had hijinks go against them. They've had the situation room go against them. They've had referee calls go against them. They've had broken sticks go against them. The other team gets outplayed, sometimes flat out dominated. They don't get rewarded. The other team makes one play and grabs the lead and wins. That can wear on you. Now, they didn't play well at all in the first period. They deserved what they got, be trailing 3-0. But to turn that around, I mean, I don't know about lasting effects. Like you've often cited Jason Cullimore as somebody who says, I don't believe in momentum carrying from game to game, but I do believe in confidence. And maybe a game like that gives them confidence that they can rally from a 3-goal deficit. But I think in the moment, and this may not be the biggest game of the year when they've played all 82 and hopefully into the playoffs, there'll be other games that are bigger. But tell me another game that was as big as this one. Maybe the home win against Anaheim, which they got after they started 1-4-2, and that kind of got them rolling a little bit. But that was a game they had the lead, and they surrendered the lead, and then they got the lead back on a power play goal from Cirelli late. This was a whole different ball game. And look, Anaheim has improved this year. Lightning play the Ducks on New Year's Eve. That's not going to be an easy game. The Ducks have knocked off some good teams this year. But Anaheim is not in the class yet of Carolina. And Carolina, understanding what had just happened to them, like, I would not have expected the final 2 periods to unfold the way that they did, based on everything that we had seen from both teams leading into that game. So credit to the Lightning. Look, so now this changes the dynamic. Now the losing streak at home is over. Now I think that they can enter tonight's game against St. Louis with a little bit more swagger. You got to keep it going. But pucks went in for them, which they really hadn't been doing at home during the losing streak, with the rare exception of that Pittsburgh game where they scored 3. That was another game they were down 3-0. But I mean, I don't know. I think that the final 40 minutes, it was filled with big plays, and every big play but one went in the Lightning's favor. Let me correct that a little bit. The Hurricanes got some saves from Kochetkov, even though it was a game in which he gave up 5. There was an empty netter in there. So those were big plays that Carolina got. Like, the Lightning could have tied the game at 3 before they did. Like, they got 2 quick goals to start the second. Kochetkov made some saves to keep it 3-2 Carolina. Gord missed an open net. He missed the net. He put it wide. Okay, you want to say those were big plays that went in the favor of the Hurricanes? Fine. But the biggest plays, we're looking at the goals being scored. The very biggest plays, all of them but one, went in the Lightning's favor in the final 40 minutes. And you make your big plays, right? And Coop said what Phil said. He felt the McDonough goal, which tied the game at 4, 24 seconds. It was less than 30 seconds. 24 seconds after Carolina got the one big play that they got in the final 40 minutes, which was the goal from Svechnikov to go up 4-3. That lead for Carolina only lasted 24 seconds. So that's why that goal was so big, because, as Coop said, it didn't really let the pity party sink in yet. And if anyone goes back and listens to our broadcast, what I said, and I say a lot of these things when I say them based on feel. The Lightning had gotten the lead for Carolina down to 3-2. And they were pressing, saves, missed nets, chance, not going in, stays 3-2. And then Carolina surged in the second part of the second period, and they were buzzing. And the Lightning, we can go over some of the shifts that Crozier and Carlisle had, because that is really informative about how much Carolina dominated possession in the second half of the second period. But at 3-2, I said to Phil, like, you get the feeling the Lightning really need the next goal. Because after they cut it to 3-2, if Carolina goes back up 4-2, it just feels like, we came so close to tying it, and now we're down 2 again. And what I said, and I didn't have a crystal ball, I often say I don't have a crystal ball, but it turned out this way, is I would almost, like if the Lightning are going to give up another goal, let them tie the game first. Give up the goal. Like if they're going to give up a fourth goal, give it up after they've tied the game at 3, not when it's 3-2 to 4-2. Because at 4-3, that's a more manageable deficit. That's the way it turned out. Now, it was still key that McDonough scored on the very next shift, which is another thing we talk about a lot on this show. Shift after a goal. Carolina gave it right back. In fact, the Lightning scored 2 goals basically on the shift after a goal. Point scored on the shift after Gonçalves scored, and McDonough scored on the shift after Svechnikov scored.
Right.
Huge goals. So credit to the Lightning. Hopefully this is exactly what the doctor ordered. They have one final game at home before the holiday break and see if they can build on it and add 2 more points to their total. And, I'll just close with this and punt it back to you. The division is not getting any less tight.
No.
The teams on the bottom are winning. Buffalo's won, 6 in a row?
Yeah.
I think Ottawa's won 4 in a row. So some of the teams on the top, like Boston lost a couple. Montreal's actually doing well, but they lost to Pittsburgh in overtime, so they got a point. But it's getting condensed even more than it was because the teams near the bottom are winning, with one exception, Toronto. Toronto's been struggling.
Yeah.
I think Toronto's in last place now. But, I mean, these are 2 important points the Lightning got in the last game. Because otherwise, they might have been, actually near the bottom of the standings. I know I don't often talk about the importance of that, but like mentally, they were at the top not that long ago. So, big win. I still maintain. I think to this point this year, through 34 games, that to me was the biggest win of the year.
It all
so
makes
far.
sense. I want to get to a few sound bites because it's going to go into some talking points for us, partner, that I think are going to be important at Bolts Radio. This one simply just Mac on his goal, whether he meant to do it or not. I thought it was a good soundbite.
I don't know what that was. Some people call it luck. I like to call it, luck, I guess. So, so what?
And look, Ryan McDonough is never going to be confused with a high-end offensive player. But if you look at his career, particularly when he was with the Rangers, he had some of that in him. And I think when he came here, I had this conversation with Brian Engblom a little bit, that when you get kind of pigeonholed a little bit with a different role on this team, sometimes you either forget how to do it or it takes a little time to get the rust off. And I think there is another level for Ryan McDonough's game where he can be a guy that, look, I'm not telling you he's going to have 15 goals a year on the back end, but there is something there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not all defense, although that is his calling card here in Tampa because that's what was asked of him. But I do think with Hedman particularly being out, I don't think it's outrageous, partner, to look at the back end. We've always talked about where are you going to get some of this offense from. I think the Lightning are 5th in the league, 5th or 6th in goals from defensemen. Radish, of course, has been the guy we're all going to discuss. But Ryan McDonough has had seasons where it's been double-digit goals. Now, I know, again, some of that was, maybe all of it was when he was with the Rangers early on. But there is something there where he can provide something. And maybe that will be part of him getting back into shape, playing shape, not only what he does defensively, because I still think the positioning may be a little bit off, getting used to the speed of the game. But Ryan McDonough has that in him to do some of those things. And I know we're going to joke about the goal, but there is some skill there. It's just he's not asked to do a lot of it. And I think that's important to point out.
Yeah, most of the goals that he scored with the Lightning have been kind of from distance, slap shots. Yeah. I mean, not maybe right at the blue line, top of the circle. He scored one in Columbus, I think, from the top of the circle. I mean, those are the sorts of goals that you're going to probably see from McDonough. Now, the fans might be like, no, you were forgetting this one that he scored from the hash marks.
Right.
It's possible that he scored one closer to the net. What I really liked about that goal, though, was like he saw an opening and he took it, right?
Correct.
So Chatfield, the defenseman, and one of the forwards, I don't remember which one it was for Carolina, tried to stand up the blue line, and McDonough like split right between them, and there was no coverage behind them. So look, as much as we say Carolina is an excellent team and the Hurricanes are an excellent team, and they're one of the top defensive teams in the league too. Not quite as stingy as the Lightning have been this year, but good, like top 10. They had some problems defensively last night, starting with a Darren Radish breakaway before the first goal went in for Carolina. So the Hurricanes didn't have an A-plus defensive game. But McDonough saw an opportunity to make a play, and he took it. And then, he got a little lucky. I mean, he tried to make a stick-handling move, and it crossed him up, and it crossed Kochetkov up. That's what makes the Kucherov move, as we call it, so brilliant, because he is intentionally messing up to mess the goalie up. It's like the Jedi mind trick or something. I think McDonough was not trying to do a Jedi mind trick. I think it turned into one, though. That's why Kucherov does it, because he understands that a mishandled puck can cross up a goalie. Because the goalie, once he sees McDonough make his move, McDonough's trying to go forehand to backhand. What is the goalie going to do? The goalie starts moving, right? When you start moving, the pad's open. So you're expecting the puck to move to one side. What if the puck just keeps going in a straight line? That's kind of what happened, right?
For sure.
And that's how Kucherov has scored that goal. Now, sometimes it doesn't go in, right? The goalie makes a save with the stick. Maybe the stick is down, even though the pads are open. Or maybe the goalie is late to react and doesn't open the pads. That time it worked for the Lightning, and it was a very fortunate mishandle for McDonough, no doubt.
The other part, there were a few. Being able to see Dominic James get some points, Gonsalves, contribute. And then really this guy who we've talked a bit about, I think he gets caught up in a numbers game. We know he's a big, strong forward who's still trying to figure out the NHL. I'm talking about Jack Finley. And a guy who his calling card is defense and winning faceoffs. And clearly that's going to take a little longer to develop here with the Lightning just because of playing time. But, he stuck with the breakaway goal, which was very important. And ironically, both of his goals have come on breakaways this year, which has been great. He went down to Syracuse, we talked about, for a conditioning assignment, and found like he maybe rediscovered his game a little bit.
I think he had a shorthanded goal down there.
I think you're right. But
nice confidence builder.
It is, but here was him after the game talking about where his game is.
Yeah, I thought I played harder tonight. I just got to use my body better. Being a bigger guy, I think that has to be my identity. And the couple of games I played in Syracuse, that's their game plan. Is everybody's playing hard, everybody's physical. And, it was good to play some more minutes and kind of get my mojo back. And I thought I was more physical tonight, and I thought the whole team was, which is easy to feed off of.
It's good to see. I don't know how many games he's going to play moving forward. Looks like the same lineup tonight, though.
Yeah, he's playing tonight.
So good for him, because I think, again, coming out of camp, you and I looked at him and he said, we clearly know the Lightning like him. He's playing all these games in the preseason. We know that he can do some things defensively. He's got a big body. I think that's what's also, you look at him, I'm not going to say, could he be a Brian Boyle? I think just because of the size and maybe more defensive oriented, but there's a little skill there too that you can play with. I think, honestly, if you were to tell me that his upside would be a Brian Boyle, somebody who could contribute offensively at times,
sure.
And I think you'd take that in a heartbeat. But you look at some of the tools in that toolbox, and I use that analogy a lot, partner. I think you start to say, okay, a younger guy, we're developing, and there's a lot of things to like about. You get an opportunity, and you put up a goal, which is great. Now, this was earlier in the game, right? Didn't he take an offensive zone penalty? Or was that the game before?
Got the stick up. No,
yeah,
it was this one where he got called for the double minor.
4
again.
minutes, right? And that's
like every time the Lightning high stick someone, they're getting cut. Although right after that, Gergensons took a high sticking penalty. That was a minor.
So not what you would want when you're trying to make an impression, for sure. But good for him. Stuck with the breakaway. Big goal for him. And I hope for his sake, and for the Lightning's sake, he's able to start to find some rhythm, because I do think he could be a valuable component to this team, whether it's this year or in the future, based off of what he can do, particularly if the face-off circle finally comes to a nice norm for him.
The Lightning will use him on D-zone faceoffs to the right of the goalie. Where he is in his career trajectory, though, he is not. I would not say he is a reliable guy at that spot. And look, I think he had to take some faceoffs against Jordan Staal. Jordan Staal is one of the best faceoff guys in the NHL. Now, Jordan Staal is a big, strong man.
Yes.
So is Finley. Yeah. So, you're trying to combat what Staal does well. Actually, they often take faceoffs against each other because it's a rhyming situation, Paul and Staal. Like Nick Paul takes a lot of faceoffs when the Lightning play Carolina, I think because Paul similarly is a big, strong man, but Paul is a lefty. So if Jordan Staal is on his strong side, you're forcing Paul to take it on his weak side. But Paul had another good game in the circle. The Lightning actually had a good game in the circle. They didn't start well. They finished well, though. 29-22, I think, were the final faceoffs. Yeah, on my game sheet it says 23, but I think that's inaccurate. So, actually 30-22. They switched. They gave a win to the Lightning that they had incorrectly assessed to or credited to Carolina earlier. So that's a good night in the circle. And Paul, on my wrong sheet, has his faceoffs are 9-6. So another good game. He went 10-2 in the previous game against the Kings. So that's great for Nick Paul, but you still are looking for that righty. So you're not forcing a lefty to take on his weak side. Here's the thing with Finley. If Finley is going to get into the lineup, and he did last game, and he's in again tonight, and the Lightning made the choice. I think they called him up early from his conditioning assignment. Now, some of that might have been uncertainty about Cirelli. Yeah. Cirelli was able to play, which is great. The reality is that if Jack Finley is going to be in the Lightning lineup, assuming they don't have a rash of injuries at center, you are going to be asking centers to play wing. So look at how last game started. Finley was a center, but Dominic James is playing wing. James is a center. So James has played wing this year. Lightning want him in the lineup. If they have to use him at wing, they're going to use him at wing. And Dominic James is like, yes, I'll play wing. That's no problem. They ended up switching up the lines a little bit after they fell behind. But, Cirelli started the game with Point and Kucherov. So the way they took line rushes, Braden Point was on the wing.
Yeah.
He wasn't playing center. Now, sometimes I understand when he's playing with Gensel takes faceoffs, but Point is still the center. Point is in the middle. Center is often, not always, but, one of your better skaters, right? Which Point is, which Cirelli is. So they switched Cirelli and Gord. So Cirelli in periods 2 and 3 was playing a lot with Gergensons and Holmberg. And Yanni Gord went to the line with Point and Kucherov, and that seemed to work well. And Point was then in the middle, but now you're having Yanni Gord play wing. Mm-hmm. So you can just count the centerman. Nick Paul's another one. Paul was at center against Carolina, but he has been used at wing when the Lightning have too many centers, honestly, dressed for a game. So Finley's a little bit at a disadvantage based on his position, because I think it's less likely that they would ask Finley to play wing. Like, put him in the lineup and just put him at wing. I think they want him to play center. So anyway, He was in last game. They made the choice to put him in. They called him up early. Maybe a little bit concerned about the lineup, but the only guy that would have been out for him to come in for would be Cirelli, and they said Cirelli was going to be in that morning. Like, it was certain that Cirelli was going to be in. So I'm glad they recalled him. I'm glad he got to play. He's going to play again tonight. But, again, like how many guys did I mention that are centers, you're moving to the wing, which sometimes you have to do. But I think, like, if you were to ask Phil, you'd like Braden Point should be a center. Cirelli should be a center. Nick Paul should be a center. Like, Phil was a center. He thinks that if you're a center, that's the position you should play. Anyway, good for Finley. It was a huge goal. That line accounted for 2 enormous goals in the second period, and another mistake by Carolina. They got caught in a line change.
For sure.
Second period of the long change. From your defensive zone to your bench, you got to go across the red line.
Yeah.
And they had been dominating possession in the minutes prior to that goal, and they just fumbled away a 2-on-0. I mean, we speak sometimes very critically of the Lightning when they make mistakes that are really self-inflicted wounds. That was absolutely, no doubt about it, an enormous self-inflicted wound by Carolina. Because, I mean, it wasn't even like the puck was behind the Lightning net. I think it was along the half wall. Radish kind of disrupted the play. Gord was out at the end of his shift, and he saw the Lightning of the two guys, and they were on the other side of the ice from the bench. I mean, especially James. He was on the left wing for the Lightning. So they got him the puck, and Finley broke to the middle. It's a short change for them. They were coming off the Lightning bench. They were on the offensive side of the red line. Once the puck got turned over, they had clear sailing. So, again, the Lightning were able to convert, which was important. Radish got stopped on the breakaway in the first period.
Right.
Finley was stopped in the breakaway, but the puck came right back to him. He's got that long reach, and he tucked it in. That was a huge goal. Made it 3-3.
It's interesting you mentioned Radish because he starts the game 2 minutes in with the breakaway.
He had a very eventful first period, didn't he?
But then he follows that up with a turnover and probably didn't, collectively looking at it, didn't have his best game, but it felt like early on, man, he had some jump. You're thinking breakaway, and Brian Engblom brought up a good point on the last call. He's like, I mean, how many times does a defenseman, think he's going to get a breakaway in a game? And so there might be a little bit like, oh my goodness, I've got a breakaway, here I go. And he tried to go 5-hole. It's funny that they had 2 in that game. McDonough does score. So I just
right, but he did the Kucherov move. Maybe had Radish done that.
Correct. Yes. I mean, that is that made me chuckle. A couple other things I did point out to you, Gonsalves and James. That was very nice to see.
They have some chemistry. They do. Yeah.
And Chief made the point he thinks James is very similar to Braden Point, skill set wise. Maybe they think the game. They certainly can skate the same way. I think what's going, and you remember Braden Point when he came up, and this is the point I made to Chief. When he came up early, maybe the first 2, 3, 4 months, maybe it was a little longer, maybe a little less, he got chances, but he couldn't finish.
Yeah.
Remember that? He had a lot of, I feel like that's going to be the next step for James.
These goalies are at a different level than what I saw in junior hockey.
Right.
And for James, college hockey.
And I think that may be the telling point in terms of what type of player James will be is, the finish, where you have to figure out some of these goaltenders. The other part of this game, and we can get some questions after this, partner, was that the elevated role that Yanni Gord had in this game. We knew Cooch was battling something, didn't look himself.
Right.
And John Cooper decided at some point in that game, was it around the second period maybe?
I think it was in the second period, and it was only only after the Lightning got the lead, and maybe even late in the third period when they were up 5-4, that Gord got put back with Gergensons and Holmberg, because they were like, we want this line, and they're going to play in the offensive zone, and that's exactly what happened. Like, they went out there, and Carolina's down a goal, and they couldn't get the puck out, because that's what that Gord, Gergensons, Holmberg line can do. But prior to that, he was playing with Point and Kucherov.
And he played off of it very well. Had a lot of energy. And I think Yanni Gord, is he a top 6 player anymore? No. But I think, is he somebody that can go up and provide a burst here and there and help that line or whoever he's playing with to just go out there, play very north-south, and just be physical? Yes. And John Cooper talked about Gord.
One of his great traits is he pulls you into the fight. And you have no choice but to work when he's on your line. And I thought he was a big spark plug for us tonight to get us going in the second.
Yeah. So his coach recognized that. And I do think John Cooper's greatest strength as a coach, and many would argue he has a lot of them, is his ability to have a pulse for his players and how the game is going.
Yeah.
I do. Do they all know X's and O's? Of course they do at this level. Even at the AHL level, guys know the X's and O's. Maybe how to articulate that well is part of what separates some of the coaches who aren't as successful to the ones who are. I do get that. John Cooper and his ability to handle his team and his players, but also when to make a move, is his greatest attribute. And maybe, partner, we saw a microcosm of that against Carolina with that simple move.
Yeah.
At times.
Well, look, when you make the move and you end up scoring 6 of 7 goals, and you rally from 3-0 down, you rally from 4-3 down in the third, you look great. I mean, Coop will mix up the lines. Coop doesn't stick with line combinations if the game is not going to his liking or a line isn't going to his liking. So, that time it worked. I would expect to see Gord back with Gergensons and Holmberg tonight. John Cooper did say same lineup. We can get to Lightning Blues and we can get to questions, but I do want to mention Carlisle and Crozier and what they had to go through in the second period.
Please do.
Because there is always the easy narrative about a game. And sometimes I'll agree with the easy narrative if the narrative is easy, right? If the easy explanation is the right explanation. I saw some stuff after this game. To me, that was the easy narrative. And I'm like, no, that's not how this game went. The easy narrative is Carolina dominated the first. The Lightning dominated the second. They got the game tied. And then in the third, the big goal was scored by Carolina. The Lightning answered and got the lead. All right, Carolina did dominate the first. And in the third, the Lightning did answer that Carolina goal. And they got the lead. But the second period was not simply the Lightning just rolled over Carolina and tied the game. What happened was they got the 2 quick goals that gave them a huge momentum burst. And then they pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed. And they couldn't get the game tied. We talked a little bit about that. They had a very effective power play in there. I'm trying to see when that power play was. 2 minutes and 7 seconds into the period. So they'd already made it 3-2, and then they got a power play. You're like, can they get another one? Like, got a brand new game. They couldn't beat Kochetkov. He made a great save on Gensel at the back post. I remember that. We talked about Gord had the chance, missed the open side of the net. And at the halfway point, Carolina answered.
Yeah.
Carolina pushed back. This was not a one-sided period. The stats may not completely reflect that. I think shots were 14-6 Lightning in the second. Attempts were 27-19. I think that's accurate for Lightning, 19 attempts for Carolina. If they were dominated, they wouldn't have had 19 shot attempts. So you're like, well, what are you talking about? Did they have a ton of chances? I'm not sure that they did, but they were on the Lightning. And the Lightning had a hard time dealing with what Carolina does so well, which is pressure. Pressure, 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 pressure. If you can get the puck out, it's coming right back in. And they were on pucks. They were on Lightning players. So second period, the period of the long change. It burned Carolina on the Finley goal. Check out these back-to-back shifts for Crozier and Carlisle, who were paired together. So Max Crozier and Carlisle come over the boards 9 minutes and 17 seconds into the period. So we're right around the halfway point. They had a 1 minute 45 second shift. 1 minute and 45 seconds. You know how long a shift should be? About 40 seconds. They were stuck out there. They came on at the same time, and I'm guessing there was a whistle, and that's how they got off at the same time. Very next shift, although they got a little bit of a break, they came on the ice with about 6.5 minutes left in the period. Okay? So they got about... Yeah. They got about a 4-minute rest there. But it's their very next shift. Crozier, 2 minutes and 28 seconds, he was on the ice. Remember, you don't want your shift. If your shift is lasting a minute, you're out there too long. But you got to stay out there if you can't change. 2:28 for Crozier. How about Carlisle? 2:55. Declan Carlisle had almost a 3-minute shift in the second period. How does that happen? The Lightning couldn't execute to get the puck down the ice to get their 2D off the ice. And Carlisle is the lefty D, so he's got the longest path. So Crozier actually got off about 30 seconds before Carlisle. So Carlisle's shift ends. He finally gets off the ice with 3:37 left in the period. Guess what happens with 3:24 left in the period? Finley scores. I mean, so that tells you how much Carolina was dominating possession. The Lightning were like hanging on. And they could have scored a fourth goal there. They didn't. That was an enormous swing. I agree with Coop. I agree with Phil. The McDonough goal was the biggest goal because Carolina did score and the Lightning were able to answer. But don't be like caught up in this. Well, the Lightning scored 3 goals in the second and they, had everything under control. No, Carolina is a great team. And that's the strength of their team. They flexed their muscles. They were PO'd. Carolina they're like, are you kidding us? We're going to blow another lead here? I mean, that happened a couple of times to them, right? But they're a proud team. They pushed back and the Lightning survived it. And then they capitalized when Carolina made a horrendous mistake. Inexcusable mistake. I mean, it's one thing if they're caught out there for 3 minutes, right? And they try and get their guys off the ice and they give up a 2-on-0. They were in complete control of what was happening on the ice. And their 2D went off and allowed a 2-on-0 as a result. And the game was tied. And that changed the complexion of things. It did, at least for the rest of that period. Anyway, I wanted to mention them because those are brutal shifts. I mean, they're just
right.
They are the worst. I've never been through one, but if you talk to an NHL defenseman, like your legs are like jelly. I mean, it is hard work defending. And Declan Carlisle had one shift at 1:45 and then one that was almost 3 minutes. Incredible. Incredible that they were able to hang in there and do what they needed to do to get off the ice.
It is incredible. Sometimes you're put in those situations and you got to dig deep, and they did.
Yeah.
Rasmilly, Merry Christmas, Dave and Craig. Wishing you and the families the best. Thaw345 says Merry Christmas, Power Lunch family. Nick says Mikucherov, which we always like that.
That sounds like a breakfast sandwich at a local eating establishment.
That's right. Mytho says, point leaders, don't look in your rear view. Is it a car? Is it a bus? No, it's Kucherov going for his third Art Ross in a row.
I don't know. I mean, McKinnon and McDavid. I didn't realize McDavid got as close as he did to McKinnon, and he may actually have the scoring lead right now. I think he's played a couple more games than McKinnon. But if you were to ask, I don't know about the Art Ross. If you were to ask me, though, Hart Trophy, there is no question Nathan McKinnon is in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
You know what his plus minus is right now, Greg?
I'm not looking, but I'm going to say their record is, how many losses did they have? 2?
Well, they've lost more than 2, but
like what is their overall record? It's like
I'll give you their overall record, and you try and guess. I saw his plus minus today, and I was like,
he's plus 32.
So Colorado this year has lost. You're right. I didn't. They've only lost 2, and so I didn't realize you were referring to only in regulation.
Yes,
2 in regulation.
Yes,
I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, I think
they've lost 7 in overtime.
Was it 29-2? And now I'm starting to look at the
26-2-7.
Okay, so that's incredible.
Yeah. So remember when the Lightning set the record or tied the record, they only didn't win 20 games because they won 62. Colorado has not won 9. They won 26, but only 2 in regulation. So they very well may set a point record. Nathan McKinnon is plus 45 this year.
Pretty good.
That is, even among like his teammates.
Yeah.
So here are the top plus minus guys. By the way, J.J. Moser is tied with Jacob Chychrun. They are the next 2 guys under the Colorado guys.
That's impressive.
So the top 6 are Colorado guys, and then you have Moser and Chychrun at plus 22. So McKinnon plus 45, Marty Necas plus 34. So McKinnon is plus 11 better than his line mate and teammate. Arturi Lehkonen plus 32, Makar plus 32, and then Josh Manson plus 25, Devon Taves plus 23, and then you get Moser and Chychrun at plus 22. Nathan McKinnon is plus 45. I think in the days of like Bobby Orr was over 100 in one season for plus minus.
Yeah.
I may have to check with Phil about that. So I don't know kind of in the modern day what the best plus minus ranking is in a season, but if the Avs keep going this way, McKinnon is having an MVP sort of season. And you might say, well, their team is so good anyway, but he is the engine of that team. Whereas the Oilers have been kind of a mess again this year. Now I think McDavid is heating up. And I'll actually look at the race. So McDavid has 1 more point than McKinnon. He's played 2 extra games. But you know what Connor McDavid's plus minus is?
10.
Even.
Yeah.
0.
There you go.
So
that's going to change with Tristan Jarry. No, I didn't say that. By the way, remember how you and I like to use the eye test for a lot of things. Mm-hmm. We can get into the analytics. Braden Point is currently a plus 5 on every other Thursday where the sun's out for 24. It's just that type of thing frustrates me. But we've been saying J.J. Moser's been really good this year.
Yeah.
And that plus minus, that sticks out. This isn't like a +2 where it could go either way, a -5 where it's like, all right, that's kind of even really in the course of an 82 game season. +22 on a team that has had a ton of injuries and change to their back end, and maybe at times defensively, especially at the beginning of the year, was struggling. That, again, I'm not going to blow this off and say he should be an all-star. He should get Norris Trophy votes. I'm just telling you, based off of last year's performance to this year, there has been an improvement that I'm not sure we could have looked at and counted on happening this year. Now, maybe part of that he's healthy.
Yeah. I think Lightning fans understand what he has brought to the team and the value he's brought, because I want to say that Shayna Goldman, who is an excellent writer for the league and is very much into the analytics, but she did a story for The Athletic. I think she had to – these are tough articles. I think she had to, like, do one for all 32 teams, a trade that the fan base would like back.
Yeah.
And what she picked for the Lightning was the Sergachev trade. Now, Sergachev is a top player, in the NHL, and he's still in his prime, and he's doing very well for Utah. And we look at Geekie, who's, kind of had a hard time getting a foothold. So I kind of understand maybe where she was going with that, but there was pushback. I saw there was pushback from Lightning fans. They're like, we as a fan base absolutely do not object to this trade based on what J.J. Moser has brought to the Lightning. So there are probably other trades that she could have found that, the Lightning, the Tanner Jeannot trade didn't work for them. Is Tanner Jeannot an NHL player? Yes. He's playing for the Boston Bruins. He was with the Kings last year.
What did they give up again? How many draft picks?
5 draft picks. Yeah.
I was actually thinking about this the other day. I was
a first, a second, and 3/3. Am I remembering there? Or was a first, second, third, fourth, and fifth? I can't remember exactly, but it was 5 draft picks.
It was the whole 2027 draft. No,
Yes.
I was out with a walk with a fam, and I was actually, when you have some time to think, I was thinking about the trades Julian made, because it's going to pick up here as we get close to the trade deadline. People are going to talk about what do the Lightning need to do, yada, 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 and mainly because Julian has had a history of going for it. And I said, look, you're never going to hit a home run on every trade. You're going to swing and miss. I was like, if I had to talk to Julian about, in a private room, was that a swing and miss? Would you admit that was a swing and miss? The Jeannot, for every 5 that you got right, even Julian is going to get some wrong. That one was a swing and miss. It's just
his argument, and he would. I don't know if he would agree. He probably would, based on how it unfolded for the Lightning with Jeannot.
Right.
But Julian's point is always like, be careful not to overvalue draft picks. That's kind of like his philosophy.
We never do.
He just he views a draft pick as one other piece that he can use to acquire a player. And what he has said often is, okay, if you have a top 5 pick in the first round, fair enough. But, a 5th round pick, 4th round pick may turn into an NHL player and may not. There have been plenty of second-round picks. People are like, oh, my gosh, a second-round pick. Like, look through the years of how many second-round picks never played a game in the NHL. At the time they were drafted, obviously, the expectation was different. So it's not that Julian doesn't have faith in his amateur scouts. It's not that. It's just that when you're picking a player at 18, there are a lot of variables that are still unknown, unless that player is projected to be, let's say, a top 5. And even then, some of the top 5 picks maybe don't turn into what we would say this player should have gone in the top 5, where you're like, yes, this player absolutely should have been a top 5 pick. Sometimes injuries get in the way. The Nolan Patrick with the Flyers, he was taken 2nd overall. He had horrible, injury problems, concussions, now retired.
Right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, that was a 2nd overall pick. Who's the guy that we just mentioned with the Kings? Byfield. Byfield's a good player, but who else went in that draft, that they took Byfield ahead of? We'll see. I'm not picking on Byfield. I think Byfield's a good player. He's got speed, center. You know, he can score. He scored 20 goals. But was there somebody else that maybe in retrospect you're like,
sure, this
player, maybe Byfield might have been more appropriately slotted as a 15th overall pick, not second overall. Anyway.
But that trade for Sergachev has a chance to be very good if Geekie ends up being what they want him to be.
But my overall point is simply like 5 draft picks for Jeannot. How many of those draft picks would have turned into a player even that plays in the NHL? Which Jeannot is still in the NHL. So the train agrees with me. If you can hear, like they're blowing. Yes, preach on.
Train's going to go see Santa.
Yes.
That's what you got to do.
Well, do you want to get into the Blues at all?
Yeah, let me get this read in real quick.
Yeah,
absolutely. And then let's talk about them for a bit, and then we can get back to some questions. Tonight, enjoy Reef Rum, smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Reef Rum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Reef Rum by name. Go Bolts. Enjoy responsibly. All right, what do we got tonight, partner, with the Blues?
So my hunch about the Blues was they were not having a good year. They're actually having an okay year, and part of it is they are 3-1-1 in their last 5. And what has happened in the West, some of the teams that were near the bottom are doing better now, like St. Louis, like Nashville. So they are within a stone's throw of the wild card. Actually, the team that is dead last in the West right now is Chicago, which was closer to the middle of the pack not that long ago. Anyway, it's not quite as tight, excuse me, as the East is, but it's tight enough that the Blues are in the mix. Remember, the Blues got into the wild card spot last year and basically took a miracle from Winnipeg in Game 7 to beat them. So they came into this year, I think, with higher expectations than how they've played. So the two things that jumped out at me about the Blues. So they are a game under Hockey 500. They have 8 losses in overtime of the shootout. They've played 8 overtime games. So they are 0-8 in overtime.
Yeah.
So if you just flip a couple of those, their record starts to look a lot better, and they're probably in the top 8 in the West. So 0-8 is that's a tough one. Like usually you get to overtime, and a couple have been in the shootout, 6 have been in overtime. Usually, by hook or by crook, you're going to win a couple of them. We'll see if that continues. I mean, they have played 8 in less than half a season, so I'm fairly confident saying they're going to win an overtime game before the season ends. So they've been a little unlucky. I'll use that word that they haven't. I mean, I'm not saying they deserved to be 8-0, but you figure a couple of them would have gone the other way. But here's the more revealing stat, at least to me. Their metrics are brutal. They are near the bottom in offense. The things that we always talk about: offense, defense, 5-on-5 ratio, special teams. Mm-hmm. They are near the bottom in offense. They are near the bottom in defense. Actually, 30th in goals for, 29th in goals against, dead last in 5-on-5 ratio. Yeah. And their special teams are no great shakes either. They're 19th in the power play and 25th in penalty kill. So it's kind of like, how are they a game under Hockey 500? Without having seen them play and without knowing too much about them, looking at these numbers, I would say their record is actually, even with the 8 overtime losses, their record is actually better than how they've played. If you're in the bottom 4 to 5 in the 3 biggies, offense, defense, and 5-on-5, and then you're not getting overwhelming support from special teams, you should be last. You should be one of the last place teams in your division, in your conference, and maybe in the league. Because statistically, you're last, close to last. So they are a little bit of an unusual team in that I'm guessing they've won some close games and they've had some blowout losses, which is a way to explain this. Right. Bennington has not had a good year. He's expected to get the start tonight. Joel Hofer has actually had a better year statistically. Hofer is coming off a win. They beat the Panthers 6-2. The 6 goals were the most they've scored in a game this year. Their record is comparable. Hofer 7-7-2, Bennington 7-8-6. So he's taken most of those overtime losses. But their goals against is separated by half a goal. Hofer is under 3. Bennington is almost 3.5. And Hofer, his save percentage is better by basically 0.025. Hofer is 8.98. Bennington is 8.73. Bennington has had a tough year. And he was probably thinking, I want to play in the Olympics. He was the guy for Canada last year in the Four Nations. And he may get a spot based on what he did last year, but it won't be based on his play this year. Like his numbers are very, very rough just looking at them. So what do we make of them? Well, I saw my good friend Chris Kerber in passing this morning. You can see if you're watching the video stream, I'm home. The Lightning had an optional to the rink. So I went in. I learned that. I stuck around for Coop. They only had about 6 or 7 guys on the ice. So I came home to do the show with you. So I'll connect with Chris a little bit more. I only saw him in passing this morning. But it seems like they've gotten a little bit of juice from some call-ups. They have a former first-round pick, Otto Stenberg, who's come up and played well for them.
It's a great name, by the way. Otto.
Yes. Well, an even better name is a guy who was also taken in the first round, same draft. His name is Dalibor Dvorsky.
Him too.
Yes. So Dvorsky went 10th.
Yeah.
And Stenberg went 25th. They had 2 first-round picks in the 2023 draft, maybe more than 2, but those were 2 of the guys they took. They're both up. So Stenberg just came up. Dvorsky has been up for a little bit, and it seems like those guys have given them a little juice. And then this is one of those weird ones. They claimed Jonathan Berggren off waivers from Detroit, and he's currently playing on their top line. And he's actually chipped in some offense for them in a very small sample size. So I think some fresh blood has helped, but I don't know. If you're the Lightning, like, you need to bear down here and try and build off what you were able to. Let's be honest. They pulled a rabbit out of the hat on Saturday. Aren't too many games you're going to be down 3-0 and you can win that game like they did.
Yeah.
So you don't want to go into the holiday break like we just gave that game right back. So I'm not saying it's going to be easy. The Blues had an impressive win against the Panthers in Sunrise. They're playing probably maybe their best hockey of the year right now. But I think if you're the Lightning, you're like, we want to go into the break on a good note. Let's not the full 60. I won't say that, Greg. But let's play as close to a complete game as we can. Because metrically, this team has had problems this year. Let's see if we can expose those problems.
Kairu's name has been
He's
thrown
injured.
around.
Yeah.
Well, it's been thrown around for trade discussions, which may speak to maybe his lack of production or where St. Louis may be. Also, too, first glance at their roster partner outside of those call-ups you just alluded to, feels like an older roster.
Yeah.
Some older guys.
Parayko, Falk. Falk
you
just
know,
played his 1,000th game. He's got 9 goals this year.
They've got some guys there that Robert Thomas. I mean, you've heard of him.
He's not old,
Buchnevich,
but yeah, he's really
Buchnevich.
Yeah, Buchnevich and Thomas are 2 of their best offensive players. I think Thomas is a very good player.
He's a good player.
He's a very good 2-way player.
He
can score. Usually Kairu, I shouldn't say usually. Kairu has played with those 2 guys before, and they've been a dynamic line. But I think Kairu is probably labeled fairly or unfairly as
he's their guy.
The most offensive and the least defensive of the 3.
They have Matthew Joseph on their team.
He's on their 4th line. Yeah.
But like Braden Shen and Cam Fowler, I mean, these guys are mid-30s. Is that? I mean, that's fair to say at this point. I mean, a lot of hockey.
Yep.
So I
Hugh Suter is new to their team. He's not a bad player. He's bounced around a little bit, but usually
did they just sign Fabry?
A middle 6.
Did they just sign Fabry? Yeah, so they're looking for offense.
They originally drafted him. He's playing on their 3rd line right now with Dvorsky and Suter. Yeah. So, look, I mean, the Lightning had Vancouver come in. I remember that, that was the second half of a back-to-back for the Lightning. But Vancouver, like, their roster was not eye-popping at that point in terms of their production. And, I mean, the Lightning took a 6-2, result on the chin in that game. So, the Blues are capable of winning this game.
Oh, for sure.
It's just that they have not had a good season, even though their record puts them in the middle of the pack in the West, and they are very much in line to get into the playoffs again. Yeah. But I will go out on a limb here and say, if they are going to get into the playoffs, Greg, they are going to have to play better than they did in the first 30-plus games this year.
That's fair.
And try and get some overtime victories along the way.
That's right. Jim says, near the bottom in offense, near the bottom in defense, which for the Bolts matchup means we will see a Hasek-like performance from the goalie tonight.
Well, Binnington has played well against the Lightning, but I will point out, for those fans that are very interested in like numbers and all of that, the last 2 years that the Blues have come to Tampa, because they only come once a year. 2 years ago, it was December 19th, 2023. Last year, it was December 19th, 2024.
Yeah.
This year, it's December 22nd. So they tend to come to Tampa right before Christmas. Those last 2 games played in Tampa, Binnington started and was not able to finish the game. The Lightning chased him in both those games. But other than those 2 games, he has been fantastic against the Lightning in his career. Often in St. Louis, which has been a very tough building for the Lightning through the years.
He's had an interesting career, hasn't he, Binnington?
Yeah.
He's been
kind of
really
came out of
good.
nowhere to win that cup in 2019, even though he'd been a pro player
Right.
for a bit.
But, I mean, he's been really good. He's had, on the ice, he's had some inconsistencies. Maybe that goes with the team. And I feel like his personality is a little different. You know, they're not afraid to
he's
get
got
it mixed
He's got
up.
a sharp, he's got a little Hextall in him. Is that fair to say?
With this team, with opposing team, I mean, whatever floats your boat. And I guess,
but
that's just how it
he
is.
was dealing for Canada last year in that tournament.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that. He was fantastic when the stakes were super high.
He was really good. I heard somebody say it's kind of the state, though, of Canada's goaltending collectively in many ways. That's the one area where you want to see them get some upgrade. I mean, when Tristan Jarry is somebody that you're talking about potentially as being part of that mix, you're like, all right.
Now he's hurt, right?
Yeah, is that as good as
Did you
Russia?
see that he got hurt in the last
I didn't.
game?
I didn't.
Yeah,
What
he had
happened?
to leave the game. It didn't really look like anything. He made a move to the side and kind of you could see that something was wrong.
Something happened, huh? Kyle says
Now
game
they played another game last night, so I didn't actually. I should check and see if he was able to even dress for that game. But it didn't look like it was. It didn't look like it was going to be like he's popping right back in the next game.
Well, you're going side to side. You're probably popping something.
You go to the next question.
Yeah,
I'll
Kyle
look it
says
up.
game was blacked out here. Radio broadcast was awesome, guys. Great job. Well, we always appreciate the nice compliment and getting it done. I'm just kind of looking through. Steve sent us a text. Basil, our good friend Basil, had a question.
Good to
as
hear
well.
from Basil.
Yeah, what a roller coaster ride that was. Funny you talk so much about the execution on Friday after the Kings game. Felt like the Bolts came out of the first intermission angry and focused, which led to 2 well-executed goals right off the bat. 2 great passes from 17 and 51 with players in good position in front of the net. Great to see.
Yeah, they executed offensively for sure in the game against Carolina because those goals were well-earned goals. Either players kind of took it to the net themselves, like Finley and McDonough, or they got to positions where they could score. Think about the Gonsalves goal and the point goal and the Gensel goal. So those are the 5. And Gensel, like I was wondering, Gensel took that shot to the empty net. He was not at the red line, but that thing was like right in the middle of the net. Like
Bullseye.
Yes, he was certain he was going to score. Otherwise, he probably skates to the red line and puts that in. By the way, Connor Ingram got the win last night for Edmonton. So he's with Edmonton.
Right, they do have him.
Jari is out. So it was Pickard backing up Ingram for that game.
We'll end on this. Not that, it's anything earth-shattering. Moser's been their best defenseman all year. Jake Gensel's been their best offensive player. 2 guys that have been in the lineup for the most part. Moser, had to sit out, but early on. But consistently, every night, you know what you're going to get from both of those guys. And Jake Gensel, I don't know if there is another player who is at his level who is less flashy than him, but is almost at a point per game in his career.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty impressive because you look at him again and you're saying, how does he do it? But, I mean, you look up, he's almost got 20 goals, right, this year.
Yep.
I mean, it seems like every game he's just you know what you're going to get from Jake Gensel, and you know what you're going to get from J.J. Moser. And those guys in the lineup provide a lot of stability. But it's not a surprise. I think at their respective positions, they've probably been the most productive too.
Real quick, something to look for tonight relating to Moser. I agree with you on Gensel, by the way. Just a model of consistency, not just this year, but really throughout his career.
Yeah.
So when Carolina pulled the goalie and Gensel scored the empty netter, the 2D out there were McDonough and Moser. I thought McDonough found his game in the Carolina game. I mean, he actually had some coverage issues during those early penalty kills. Like Jackson Blake's deflection goal is kind of where McDonough slanted toward the middle. I think he was worried about a pass to the slot.
Yeah.
But it left the side open. Anyway, even before he scored, I think McDonough got back to wherever he needed to get to. Like, hopefully that is just like he's going to be McDonough from here on out. Like we said, look, missing 18 games, coming back. He even said, like, first game, I had some good moments. I had some not so good moments. I thought he had a very, very good game once the game got going against Carolina. But he was paired with Destu. If McDonough's going to be paired with Destu's going to go to the right side. He's played a little bit on the right side, but mostly he's played on the left side with Lilleberg on the right side when they had all the other injuries. The fact that they finished the game with Moser on the right, we know he can play on the right, and McDonough on the left in the 5-on-6. And you talked about, like, Radish has had a couple of games that have been a little more wobbly, not so much offensively, but, you know, he had 2 mistakes in the first period. The one was glaring where he gave it away to Stahl, but then he tried to, like, go backhand D to D to McDonough. It may have caught McDonough off guard. That was the Bradley Nadeau goal. And Phil thought he was a little uneven in the game against the Kings, too. I didn't notice that as much, but let's see if they move Destu to the left with Radish is kind of where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And let's see if McDonough becomes kind of the shutdown D pair with Moser, where Moser is going back to the right.
Interesting.
I don't know if we're going to see that. We may see what we've seen. Moser and Radish have played very well together. Very well together. But now you got McDonough back, and it looks like McDonough is back. Like, McDonough is back to being McDonough. So if that's the case, who's going to play with McDonough? Who's more comfortable as a lefty on the right side, Moser or Destu? Moser.
Well,
at the NHL level.
And when Chernak comes back, is it
when
automatic?
Chernak comes back?
Is that
but I'm just talking about.
Yeah,
I'm just talking about tonight. Yes.
Oh, pardon. You know, I like to look 2 months in advance. When these guys come back, what are they going to do?
Yeah, I know.
It's a good problem.
But yeah. Because Chernak, we haven't even seen him on the ice for practice or anything like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, leave the fans with that, and we can get into it tomorrow. We're going to pre-tape our final show before holiday break.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Good job. Always good on a Monday.
You too.
You know, to get it going. And I will see you at the rink with the boys. And we'll be here tomorrow taping, as you said. So if anybody has questions after the game, feel free to get them in via X or wherever you listen, and we'll make sure to read those on the air before Christmas, which will be a lot of fun. All right, partner. Great job.
You too.
As always, thanks to Steve Versnick, Jared Johnston. Thanks to you for listening. We always appreciate you guys. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.